Okay, everyone, we'll learn a little bit of Tanya. Today is the first day of Rosh Chodesh Tammuz. A good Chodesh to everyone. We are holding in Shaar HaYichud Vehamuna, chapter 10. We're starting chapter 10 today. So previously we learned that God is infinitely greater than the Sephiros, than the divine attributes. And that we cannot grasp God's relationship and connection with all the divine attributes. This chapter discusses the unity of the divine attributes with their source, just as the sunlight is united within its source. The solar globe, in today's lesson, the analogy and the term light employed by the Kabbalist for the Sephiros, for the divine attributes, is merely for the sake of our comprehension, not an accurate definition. Chapter 10. Concluding the previous chapter, the Alter Rebbe explained that God is infinitely exalted above intellect. Intellectual means are inadequate to grasp his absolute union, meaning with intellect alone is not going to do it for you to grasp his Hashem's absolute union with the divine attributes, with the Sephiros of the world of Atzilus. Despite the divine attributes being limited to the particular divine attributes of wisdom, for example, the attribute of wisdom is limited to wisdom, the attribute of understanding is limited to understanding, the attribute of kindness is limited to kindness. So despite that fact that they're limited, the Zohar terms these attributes the secret of faith. For their union with the divine is beyond mortal comprehension. Nevertheless, despite the fact that the divine attributes, the Sephiros, transcend intellect and comprehension, since the Torah spoke in humans' language, to modulate the ear so we can understand it, something that we are capable of hearing. Permission was granted, was given to the sages, the rabbis, to explain it to us with different analogies, to speak allegorically of the divine attributes of the spheres. Note by the Rebbe that the use of the term mashal, allegory, stresses that the allegory and its subject are not identical, but merely that there is similarity between the relationship that subsists among the particulars of the analogy to the relationship that subsists among the particulars of the analog. There is, however, no connection at all between the particular aspect of the analogy and the analog. So, meaning, if we are trying to understand God's absolute unity with the divine attributes through the analogy, Alter Rebbe tells us you should know before starting this journey that it's not the same at all, the analogy and the analog. Here, for instance, the sun's rays and the sun do not compare in any way at all to the divine attributes and their source. Sun and the sun rays, obviously united with one another, but they're not similar at all to the divine attribute with the source, with Hashem. The analogy refers only to the manner in which the sun's rays are united, related with the sun itself. This analogy makes it easier for us to comprehend the unity of the Sephiros with their source. Meaning, if we think about it, for example, this analogy of the sun and the rays of the sun with the sun, with the moment that the rays are within the sun, they are completely nullified. They are one with the sun. So this is expressing a higher level of unity, of oneness. Koros and Oiros, now the Kabbalists call the spheres lights. The divine attribute, they call it light. using terminology borrowed from the revelation of light. So that by means of this metaphor, the nature of the unity of the Holy One, blessed be He, and His attributes will be somewhat understood by us. Shehu b'derech mashal k'yichudei hashemesh b'derech guf kador hashemesh im guf Hashem shenikra moer. By way of illustration, it's like the unity of the sun with the luminary, with the source of the sun. It's called moer. It's called the luminary. Which is written in the Torah. This terminology calling the source of the sun, the moer, the luminary, or moer agodol, the great luminary. Then you have the ray that comes from the sun. That is called oir, nikra oir. Again, it's written in the Torah. So far we have the luminary and we have the light that is coming out from, that is emanated from the luminary. When the light is one with its source, I just mentioned before, within the source in the orb, then it is united with it in absolute unity. There's only one etzem, one entity. The body of the luminary which emits light. It would hardly be reasonable to say that within the orb of the sun there exist two things, the luminary and its light. There's one thing, the luminary. Within the sun globe, only the sun itself exists. Ki aziva ir shom, the ray and the light itself, the luminary, etzem echod, is one etzem, one body. In the radiation and light is absolutely one being, with the body of the luminary which illuminates, and it has no existence by itself at all. Etzem echod mamish im guf meir the appearance of radiation and light outside the sun would seem to indicate that light exists within the sun itself, for it reaches out and illuminates the whole world. It is surely found within its source. In fact, however, when sunlight is considered at the stage at which it is found within the luminary itself, it is so completely identified with it that it cannot be termed light at all. Within the sun, the light has no existence with an independent identity. So it's not independent completely, and it's nullified. How much more so when it comes to midoso shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to the attributes of God, His will, His wisdom, the way they are manifested in the world of emanation. Everything that you see in the world of Atzilus is obviously united with Hashem, but the oneness is much greater. It's much deeper than the analogy of luminary and the rays and the light. Who becomes closed in them and unites with them in perfect unity, since they derived them and emanated from Him, just as by way of analogy, light is diffused from the sun. However, God's unity with His attribute is not exactly in this manner, but in a manner which is remote and concealed from our comprehension. For His ways, the ways of Hashem, are higher than our ways. Nevertheless, and to, as we said before, to modulate for the ear what is able to hear. We can contemplate, we can listen to perceive and comprehend the analogy of the light of the sun, that is united, which is united with the sun and nullified in its source, has no name of its own. When it's nullified, only the name of its source. It's only called the luminary. When it comes, Similarly, this is the way all the attributes of the Holy One, blessed be He, Ritzoynoi, Uchochmosoi, His will, His wisdom, Einam Oilus and Nikol B'Shem Yisrael Klal. At the source, they are not called Chesed, they are not called Gevurah, they are one with Hashem. But from in relation to the creatures, from our perspective, a higher ones and lower ones, Elyonim Tachtonim, Shavayos and Vechus Vanagom Shakush Bochum Avim Chayusum Anigom, which are brought into existence and given life and guided in their conduct by the Holy One, blessed be He, who Birtzein V'Chochmasu V'Nesav Daisam Islabshois V'Daitam Islabshois V'Daisar Gdosha, through His will and wisdom and understanding and knowledge, which garb themselves in His holy emotive attributes such as Chesed, Gevurah, and Tiferes. The Sephiros, the emotive attributes, are termed Chochma, Bina, Da'at, wisdom, understanding, knowledge, Chesed, kindness, and so forth, in relation to the beings which are created and vivified by God through His will and wisdom, and so forth, which clothe themselves in the emotive attributes. Stated in the Midrash, by means of 10 things was the world created, by wisdom, by understanding, by knowledge, as it is written, God founded the earth with wisdom. He established the heavens with understanding, but with His knowledge, the depth of the abyss were burst open. We thus see from the Midrash that the world was created by means of 10 things, the 10 Sephiros. As expressed by Eliyahu Novi, the passage that opens the Posach Eliyahu, we see on Friday afternoon, and forms part of the introduction to the Tikkun Zohar. You have brought forth 10 garments, 10 tikkunim, and we call them 10 Sephiros. Lan Hogo, why did you make them? Lan Hogo b'rinal misasimin, to direct hidden worlds unrevealed. The lois galin b'almin dis galin, hidden worlds, unrevealed, worlds that transcends mortal comprehension, and worlds revealed, worlds that are accessible to mortal comprehension. Uvehoin is kasiyas chulu, and through them you conceal yourself from created beings, so that they will not be able to perceive the divine life force that creates and vivifies them. So the takeaway from today's Tanya: light shines outwards, but is closely connected with its source. God attributes are therefore called light, oiros, because they are also internally connected with their source. Bruchim Tiyu, thank you for listening, and have a good Chodesh.